Hi, everyone. Okay, so we're back to the to my laptop. Okay, so let's go then to another exercise because federalism seems to be an important topic. When I looked at your midterm papers, and by the way, I started meeting with you, as you know, some of you of today in my office, federalism and American federalism was an issue that came up in some of your midterms. And of course, the United States is the first modern federal republic, but of course there are other federal models that exist in the world, federal systems, and perhaps one of the most even more creditworthy investments than the American Treasury bonds are German bonds. I mean, Germany investments, buying German bonds to cover the German budget deficit is considered such a safe and secure investment that the interest that you receive doesn't even keep up with inflation in Europe. And this is before the pandemic. I mean, inflation in Europe was about 1% a year, and the German bonds were paying less than 1% in interest. So in other words, even if you bought German bonds, you still lost money because the interest rate was less than the inflation rate in Europe, because German bonds were considered so safe that the German government didn't have to offer significant interest to get people to park their money in those bonds. You might say, well, why might somebody want to buy German bonds if they're not going to make any money, not to mention lose a little bit of money? And the reason is because often investors, they have this money sitting around they can't do anything with for some months. And so they got to do something with it. They just can't keep it in a bank account. So they would buy German bonds. So they say they invested it, because if you invest it, you have tax issues and tax write-offs and tax benefits. So, and by the way, the point is that Germany is the Federal Republic of Germany. Germany is a federal system. And like Canada, well, Canada is also a federal system. Australia is also a federal system. Of course, Russia is also another federal system, but the German federal system is considered to be very stable, very secure, very efficient state apparatus. So federalism is an issue, but federalism has, like anything in this world, has its benefits and its drawbacks. Has its benefits and its drawbacks in terms of the consequences for policy and policy making. It makes policy, addressing policy for different problems more complicated, but potentially more efficient and more effective. And I have in mind, for example, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, dealing with natural catastrophes. If a hurricane is going to hit the United States, and it's predicted to hit one American state like Florida or Louisiana, then the state of Louisiana and the city of New Orleans in Louisiana on the coast and the federal government can more effectively potentially address those problems and challenges of preparing for the hurricane and responding to the hurricane, because the local and state government of Louisiana and the city government of New Orleans, they know New Orleans very, very well because they're the city government of New Orleans, and the state of Louisiana knows the challenges and problems and resources more accurately and more effectively, and can mobilize them potentially more effectively than some distant, faraway central government based in Washington, D.C., where people work in Washington who might or might not have any kind of connection with Louisiana. On the other hand, it does require more cooperation, coordination, and that can be a problem at times. So, but the critical point, and this is of course also relevant for voting behavior in the United States, is that how do you know if you have a federal system, a genuine federal system? I mean, here in South Korea, we have a unitary system. Of course, you still have local and state governments. Here we are in the city of Bucheon, in the region, province of Gyeonggi-do. But Gyeonggi-do and Bucheon, they do not have as much autonomous power to as the state governments in the United States, for example. State governments in the United States, Ohio or Texas, they have lots of power. We already covered how they even control the criminal justice system to a significant extent. They can even kill people, execute people for murder, as 14 states, I believe, still in the United States do have court systems that can give the death penalty for crimes like horrible murder. But of course, Gyeonggi-do cannot decide on its own whether or not it's going to have a court system and put people on trial for crimes like murder. But less dramatically, but just as important in terms of voting behavior, is this ability to raise money. In federal systems, the provinces of Australia or the provinces of Canada or the states of the United States, they have the autonomous power to decide whether or not you should pay more money to their governments, the government of my home state of Ohio, or my home city of Louisville, or my county in Stark County. We saw the Stark County Board of Elections website. The counties in the United States raise money through taxes. And there are various forms of taxes. And of course, nobody likes to pay more taxes. Of course, taxes is a very important issue politically. And I already described how it bothers me how I have to pay all this taxes, whereas Donald Trump pays no taxes because he's able to use the tax system and his lawyers with his advice of his attorneys to find ways to hide his money and keep it from being taxed. Taxes is an important issue that motivates so much of political behavior of voters and their elected representatives. And even the so-called Tea Party movement that we briefly referenced at the beginning of the semester regarding the populist, conservative, Republican grassroots movement that is the base or the one of the base groups enthusiastically supporting Trump, stands for the Tea Party movement. T stands for taxed enough already. No more taxes. TEA, TEA, T, taxed enough already. So taxation, if you want to understand federalism, you have to understand the taxation system in the United States. And so we might not be able to get through all of this, but we should talk about the taxation system because this is what motivates Americans and many people, particularly, and of course, the Democratic Party of Joe Biden is certainly hoping that the American people are angry enough about the rich and powerful people being able to avoid taxation that while people like me, we can't avoid it. And of course, people that support Donald Trump and defend the current situation, the current system, they make arguments about how, for example, well, it's the taxation system in the United States is set up in such a way as to encourage these business people to invest their money. And by investing their money, like, for example, in real estate, building new buildings and so on, they create more jobs, right? So the taxation system is created in a way to incentivize people that control lots of money to invest that money that's supposed to help the economy and create jobs for people, right? And so there are arguments that are made why Donald Trump doesn't pay taxes. The taxation system was created in such a way that he is encouraged always to invest his money and build more property, build more buildings, and therefore create more jobs for more people who need jobs, working in construction, working in those stores and offices that then are created in those real estate developments. So taxpayers, so you can see here, this is the introduction of different kinds of taxes that we have in the United States. There is the payroll taxes that I pay if I work in the United States and I am paid by a government, no, not the government, I'm paid by a US company that the government takes money out of my paycheck through the employer, paying the money directly to the United States government. And this is called payroll taxes. I'm on the list of employees for a company, and the money is taken from my paycheck and sent to the Internal Revenue Service. The Internal Revenue Service is the name of the organization that is supposed to monitor the federal income tax system in the United States. And these, they provide for government services, and but these 80,000 state and local governments, they also can impose taxes. And one of the most common taxes is a sales tax. Sales tax is what you pay when you buy something. Government at all levels can impose sales tax. Typically, it was when I was your age in Stark County, Ohio, the sales tax, I think it was 4%. So if you bought a bottle of Pepsi, for $1, there would be 4 cents added to that price because there'd be a 4% sales tax on anything. Pepsi, food, buying a chair, there would be a sales tax. Sometimes some products, they have higher sales tax than others. So smoking is a problem, right? Smoking is a problem everywhere. The claim is that people who smoke get sick and they get cancer and they have to go to the hospital, and that's going to cost huge amounts of money for society, directly or indirectly. And so the sales tax on cigarettes is much higher than the sales tax on Pepsi or Coca-Cola bottles. And so they can regulate the tax that they place on these items as so they choose. However, the Stark County Board of Commissioners or the Louisville City Council and my little small town of 10,000 people in Louisville, they can decide. Excise tax only applies to certain items. States often put excise taxes on alcohol and tobacco, cigarettes. At the federal level, there are excise taxes on gasoline, air transportation, fishing equipment, and even indoor tanning. You won't usually see an excise tax listed on your receipt because it's a tax the seller owes to the government. And again, the important point here is that the local governments themselves decide whether or not to create these taxes and how much they are. Income tax is the tax you pay on money you receive from various sources. Some income is money you earn by working at a job. There are other kinds of income too, like if you invest money like people my age do in the stock market for retirement investments, in safe, boring stock market investments, that's also considered income tax. And the due date typically is April 15th. I think it was delayed a little bit this year for some reason. I think the due date was, it might be today or tomorrow for filing your federal income tax form. I did mine back at the end of February after, well, no, in March. In March, I sent my income tax report in. Corporate income tax, progressive, these are taxes, profits on tax made by corporations. And progressive taxes means the more money you make, the higher percentage of taxes you should pay. The notion is if you're barely living on $10,000 a year, you might pay 1% of your tax, of your income on tax as taxation. But if you're making $1 million a year, you should pay 10% because the richer people can afford more of the taxes and can't tax everybody at the same percentage rate, because obviously if you're only making $10,000 a year, you're barely surviving, and we can't tax you at the same rate that we tax rich people. There are property taxes. Well, let me go on here. Social Security and Medicare tax, these are separate. Remember, these are mandatory spending programs, and when they were created with different taxation systems to accompany them. And why they were done that way, it includes politics, right? I mean, Americans have this romantic self-image of being individualistic and only taking care of their own affairs and their own problems. So getting this program approved back in the 1930s that we're going to take care of all old people. We're going to give all, because at the time, at least 1/4, 25% of all old people lived in poverty. You know, if you didn't have children who could take care of you and you were poor, you were in big trouble 100 years ago, because there were no social old age pension programs in the United States 100 years ago. And so that's one of the reasons why you had children, because they would take care of you. But obviously that doesn't always work. So this program was set up to deal with old age poverty, people who are too old to work and they're still alive. And you can't just let them starve, and you can't rely upon churches and charity organizations to take care of it. But it had to be promoted and encouraged Americans to accept it by making Americans believe that you yourself are paying in your own money into the Social Security system. And then when you retire, you get that money back. So you're not helping other people, you're helping yourself. And that's BS. But that's what Americans often still believe. I mean, when Social Security was adopted back in the 1930s, people lived to be 70 and that was it. They retired and they died a few years later. Now people live to be, what, in South Korea, women live to be over 90. And if you have grandparents and they get old, you know the last 5 or 10 years of their life, they're always in hospital. They're always sick. They're always being treated by doctors with expensive new medical care systems, expensive new treatments. And so these two programs, they're incredibly expensive because people are living to be older and older and older, and they get sicker and sicker and sicker until they die, and they have to be treated. So, but still, it was necessary to make people believe. So if you get paid in the United States and you get your paycheck, you look at your paycheck and you'll see federal income tax, you'll see FICA, which is the federal, you see two other, I can't remember their names, but you see two other types of entries on your paycheck. Federal income tax taken out, and also for Social Security and Medicare, right? And then we're running out of time here, so that's why I'm rushing. And then other taxes, property taxes, estate taxes, tax you pay when people die, and they give you, like when my parents passed, they gave me some money, and I had to pay a certain amount of taxes on that. And that was an estate tax. Tariffs are what you pay on imports, is taxes on imports. So that's where I have to stop today, because I've got to move down to my next class and copy this file here. So I will see some of you in my class, in my office today, starting today, okay? So, and then we'll come back on Monday, all right? So that's where I have to stop now, okay? Sorry? Yeah, I mean, you signed up, right? Okay, so let me go here. Look at your computer. So you go to, yeah, I mean, I sent the file. So go here and you see Google Drive here. You should be able to see. So this is the file I sent. So this is what people go to Google Drive, and they sign up there for the conference sessions in my office. So you can see I've got Ella, Sarah, and Anais coming in today into my office. So you need to go here and you need to put your name in when you would like to come to my office, okay?
They are all the day.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I sent a link, but I can send to you again if I remember. Okay.